Hola, muy buenos días a todos. Bienvenidos a nuestra sesión de Marantz. Y bueno, en esta ocasión nos van a acompañar dos personas. Inició su carrera en el mundo de Macintosh y el mundo de Hi-Fi en una tienda en 1973. Estudió ingeniería electrónica en la Universidad de Boston por 3 años y decidió dejarla para convertirse en el gerente de la tienda de Hi-Fi de Macintosh a las afueras de Boston. En 1980 compra en bancarrota una tienda en San Francisco por la cantidad de $50. Y esa tienda, y él la convirtió en la tienda más grande de todo el mundo de Macintosh. Después de 16 años de tener la tienda, decidió venderla y se unió a Macintosh y creó el programa de McMasters para integradores, que algunos de ustedes ya han tenido la oportunidad de tomarlo. Y hoy en día es el director de ventas y de entrenamiento para Macintosh. Por favor, démosle la bienvenida a Ken Selling de Macintosh. Y por otro lado, también nos estará acompañando Sergio Gaitán, que algunos de ustedes, Sergio Gaitán es nuestro embajador de la marca Macintosh en México. También Sergio cuenta con 25 años de experiencia, 25, 26 años de experiencia en la industria de audio y video. Es nuestro especialista de Macintosh y embajador de la marca. Obviamente, pues, Sergio es apasionado de la música y el whisky y, bueno, sobre todo de una muy buena charla sobre tecnología. Por favor, démosle la bienvenida tanto a Ken como a Sergio para esta sesión. Ken and Sergio, thank you very much for your time. We open the mics for you.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
We're fine, Ken. Thank you. And you?
I'm doing very well. We just announced, Macintosh announced a new product yesterday. So we keep announcing more and more products. It's hard to even keep up.
Yeah.
So I thought today I would talk a little bit about one of the key products that's been released recently. And that's the MA12000 integrated amplifier. Let's see. I have a picture of it where maybe I can screen share. Share screen. Share. You see that?
Yes, Ken.
Yes. Excellent. So this is the MA12000, and this is quite new. And I thought I would talk about this for a few minutes because it kind of embodies everything that Macintosh is all about. So Macintosh is different from most other companies, and Macintosh has a lot of patented features that no one else has. And this has basically almost every feature Macintosh has ever designed. It has Sentry Monitor, and Sentry Monitor prevents damage to the amplifier in case the speaker wires ever touch each other. If speaker wires touch, the amplifier, all of a sudden the current goes way up from 1 amp to 50 amps. It's a big problem. And it can destroy an amplifier. So most other amplifiers have fuses. So if you touch the speaker wires together, the fuses blow to protect the amplifier, but now you have to go out and buy new fuses. This has something called Sentry Monitor, which takes care of the shorted speaker wire problem electronically. So there's no fuses. As soon as the problem is taken away, the amp is back to normal operation. So that's really kind of nice. This is a very powerful amplifier. It's 350 watts per channel. but it's still possible if you're having a party to overdrive an amplifier. There's certain types of music that really need maybe 1,000 watts to sound their best. And no one has 1,000 watts, almost no one. So when an amplifier goes past its power limits, it does what's called clipping. And clipping is when the top and bottom of the wave are chopped off. It's like you took a scissors and clipped the wave right off. And that's really bad for your speakers. That can hurt a speaker. So this has power guard, and power guard is a very fast circuit. It works at the speed of light, so faster than sound. And if the amp is about to run out of power, if you're playing it really loud, it turns its volume down automatically. And as soon as the problem goes away, it turns the volume back up. And it can do this in 1,000th of a second. So that's pretty darn fast. You'll never hear it working. So this has power guard. This has output autoformers. So they're kind of cool. If you look at most amplifiers today, they'll say 100 watts if your speakers are 8 ohms, and maybe 150 watts if your speakers are 4 ohms, and maybe 200 watts if your speakers are 3 ohms, but don't use it with 2 ohms. So amplifiers are always designed to work best into a certain number of ohms. And if the ohms go lower, the amp gets too hot. If the ohms go higher, the amplifier power goes down. So let's say that you tomorrow won a trip to go to France for a week. That'd be nice, right? So let's say you won a trip to France and you're getting ready to go to France, and you look at your electric shaver and it says 120 volts only. Uh-oh, you can't use that in France. It's 230 volts in France. So you're going to run out and you're going to buy a transformer, a little transformer. And that transformer makes it so you can use that shaver on any voltage. There's a little switch on it, and it thinks it's back at home. It turns 240, 230, 220, or 200 volts back into 120. So that's what this amplifier has. It has transformers on its output. So when I said this is 350 watts of power, it's 350 watts into 8 ohm speakers. But if you hook up 4 ohm speakers, because it has a transformer, it still thinks it's on 8 ohms, and you get full power and it doesn't get hot. You want to hook up 2 ohms? You can hook up 2 ohms. It still doesn't get hot, and it always gives you full power. So that's a nice feature. No one else in the world has that.
Okay.
But yes, you had a question?
Yeah, please. Can I connect 2 speakers with 2 different onsets to the same amplifier?
Okay. So let's say I had a customer who came up to me once at a show, and he said he has 2 pairs of speakers in the same room. One pair is a pair of clips, and one pair is a pair of Advent speakers. And he said when he plays them at the same time, the clip speakers are way too loud and the Advent speakers are way too quiet. So what I had him do was attach the 8 ohm clip speakers to the 2 ohm tap. So they only get 25% power. And then we attach the Advent speakers to the 8 ohm tap, and the volume became almost equal. Now, what you can also do, let's say you bought a pair of bi-wireable speakers. So on the back of your speakers, there's separate terminals for the highs and lows. And when you heard them in the store, they sounded fantastic. But when you get them home, there's a little bit, not enough highs. You can put the tweeters on the 8 ohm tap and the woofers on the 4 ohm tap to get more highs. Or if there's not enough bass, you can put the woofers on the 8 ohm tap and the tweeters on the 4 ohm tap. So that's another nice thing about output transformers. And if you have a great big swimming pool in the backyard and you want to put 8 speakers around your swimming pool, that's 2 ohms. If they're all hooked up together, you can hook that up to the 2 ohm tap. And you can have the outside hooked up to the 2 ohm tap and the woofers hooked up to the 8 ohm tap and your tweeters hooked up to the 4 ohm tap and play them all at the same time. And the amp is happier than a pig in mud.
Great, thank you.
Sure. Now, Macintosh has built tube equipment for a long time. I mean, Macintosh has been in business since 1949. By the way, I'll answer a question I always get at some point. Someone says to me, how long does a Macintosh last? So before we get the question, I'll answer it. We don't know yet. Most of the things we built 70 years ago are still working. So come back and ask me the question in another 30 years and I might have the answer. Okay, so Mac used to build all tube equipment. And then in the 70s, they switched to solid state. And sometimes people say, why did Macintosh stop building tube equipment? It's because they couldn't get the tubes anymore. The US wasn't trading with China and Russia. And all the US tube companies stopped making tubes. So we had to switch to solid state. And then in the 80s, tubes became very popular again. And I get a question a lot. If I want tubes, should I have a tube preamp or should I get a tube amp? And my answer is always the same. It doesn't really make too much difference. As long as the music goes through tubes, at some point in the chain, you get tubeliciousness. Tubeliciousness is my word for the sound of tubes. Well, there are a lot of people who like their music loud. And buying a lot of tube power is expensive. So this amp is 350 watts of solid state power amp, but the preamp is tubes. So you get the full tubeliciousness along with very high power. So that's really cool.
How could you describe the sound of an hybrid amp?
Well, it's very easy to listen to. You know, engineers design amplifiers, but sometimes engineers design things and they can't tell you why they sound the way they do. I mean, you can take any company who makes speakers, and some of their speakers sound wonderful, and some are only good. Well, tubes sound different. And the way I describe it is you can listen for hour after hour after hour. Sometimes with transistors, after an hour or two, you want to turn it off. And really, no one knows why. If you ask 10 different people, you get 10 different answers. And that has to tell you no one really knows why. But it's that way. It's like a certain brand. I use a certain salt when I cook. It's sea salt, and it seems to taste different. I don't know why, but it does. So Macintosh builds tube preamps and builds tube amps, but my favorite, if you're going to put them together, is if you like your music loud. I do. I like solid state in the amp with tubes in the preamp. Now, it all depends on the customer. Maybe someone lives in an apartment and they can't play it loud. Maybe they have small speakers. There's a lot of reasons. Maybe their spouse doesn't let them play their music loud. That's very common because women hear well up to age 74. Men hear well up to about age 30, and then it starts going down a little bit. So men keep wanting to turn the volume up, and women who hear really well say, that's too loud, let's turn it down. More and more people are listening to vinyl. Vinyl is really a big thing. And if you have a turntable with a very high quality phono cartridge and tone arm, you may not want everyone in the family using it because they may not be as careful as you. So a lot of people have two turntables, one that's very high quality and one that won't wear out the records, but not as refined for the rest of the family to use, which is why this amplifier has two phono inputs. But what I wanted to mention is phono loading. Are you familiar with that term, phono loading? So every amplifier likes to be hooked up to speakers of a certain number of ohms. Well, every turntable wants to be hooked up to an amplifier that presents it with a certain number of ohms. And it depends on the phono cartridge. So if someone comes to me and says, Ken, I have a great turntable, I'm buying a new phonograph cartridge for it. I have a phono preamp, maybe a Project, could be a Rega, a Lin, whatever. Good phono preamps have adjustable impedance on it, so you can change the number of ohms. So you're supposed to listen to your music, change the ohms, listen again, change the ohms, listen again, and decide where it sounds its best. But you have to keep getting out of your chair and walking up to the stereo. What this has, this is the coolest thing for vinyl lovers, is you can adjust the loading of both phono inputs while the music is playing by remote control with digital readout on the front of the amp of what the setting is. That's a great feature.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I'd like to also talk about the digital section of this, and then maybe we'll move on or take questions. This has a built-in DAC. So the DAC is the part that turns digital music into analog that we can hear. And more of what we listen to is digital. I have satellite TV. It comes over HDMI digital. I also have a music streamer, and it outputs optical digital. I have a CD player, and it has coaxial digital. So we have all these different sources. So this has a very high quality DAC built in. Now, most amplifiers and preamps will have two DACs, one for the left channel, one for the right channel. This one doesn't. A step up is to have four DACs. That's very rare. So there's one for the left channel, and there's another one for the left channel that's putting out music that the waves are upside down. So one puts out music and one puts out what I call anti-music. And everything puts out noise. And then what we do is we take these two and we flip the anti-music upside down, so it's back to music. We put them together so you get more music, but the noise got canceled. Just like noise canceling headphones. You can't reduce noise more than a certain amount, but what you can do is you can cancel it so you won't hear it. So this needs to have 4 DACs in it. Left speaker upside down music, right speaker upside down music. But it doesn't have that either. It has 8 DACs built in because everywhere there's a DAC, there's 2 put together so that you get lower noise and distortion. So what I'm saying is it's hard to find a better DAC than the one in here, but DACs improve every few years. And Macintosh builds amplifiers that last 40, 50, 60 years. I mean, on the Facebook Macintosh page, there's hundreds of people with our amplifiers built in 1970. I mean, those amplifiers are babies. They haven't even gone through puberty yet. They're only 50 years old, right? So we want this amp to be good for a long time. So what we have is this DAC section here unplugs. So when technology improves, you'll loosen 2 screws, slide it out, put in a new DAC. So last year we had the DA1 DAC. This one has the DA2. In a few years, we'll have a DA3. So there's no obsolescence. That's why I love this piece so much. It's got power guard, Sentry monitor, output autoformers, a DAC, and a tube preamp stage.
And what are the differences between the DA1 and the DA2 boards?
Not much. If someone has a DA1 and they say, should I upgrade to a DA2? I usually tell them, no, let's wait. So the 2 things are DSD. DSD is one way to encode digital music. And I don't know anyone who uses it, at least here in the States. If you do use it, the DA2 can handle a higher frequency of DSD. We did that because we could. The big difference is the DA2 has an HDMI input. So if you have a TV with ARC on it, or that's audio return channel, you can take that and plug it into this. And the nice thing about HDMI is it synchronizes the sound and the picture. So you don't have the voices speaking and then the lips move. Now, if someone says, I have my TV plugged in, I have a DA1, everything's out of sync, put in a DA2, hook it up with HDMI, the problem solved. But the DA2 doesn't have fundamentally better sound. Maybe the DA3 will, but we haven't even started to design that, so don't take orders yet.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. Any questions for me in the chat yet that I should address?
Not yet, Ken.
Okay, so let me find, yeah?
Go ahead.
Okay, let's find something else to talk about. There's a brand new headphone amplifier. Okay, are you seeing the headphone amplifier now?
Yes, on your website.
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, just want to make sure. Otherwise, I'll keep talking forever and no one will know what I'm talking about. So this is a tube headphone amplifier, and it has 3 different types of headphone jacks: regular 1/4-inch phone jack. It also has XLR, a single XLR, and it has dual XLR. So you can plug any kind of headphone into it. But this is a headphone amplifier with output transformers, because here's a survey that was taken. Most people who own headphones that are expensive, over $1,000, own 3 or 4 expensive headphones. People who are into high-end headphones know no headphone is perfect. So they'll have a pair of Grados and a pair of Sennheisers and a pair of something else and a pair of something else. Well, they're all different ohms. Some are 40 ohms, some are 800 ohms. And any headphone amp that's made to be perfect for one is not perfect for the other. One of our competitors makes a headphone amp with 4 different jacks for different ohms, but it adjusts with a resistor. And a resistor is a terrible way to do it. A resistor just takes the extra energy and throws it away. My analogy for using a resistor is like you get up in the morning to go to work, get in your car, start your engine, and put a brick against the accelerator pedal. And then when you want to slow down, pull up on the emergency brake. You can do it, but it's a waste of a lot of energy. So what we've done is we've custom made a headphone output transformer. So there's a 4-position switch to optimize it for your headphones. Now, the bad news is we're back ordered on this and we won't have enough for about 4 to 6 months. We're going to start shipping. We say next month, don't believe it. It's probably the month after. And then it's going to be 4 months till we can make enough of them. But that gives everyone time to save up for one of these. What's amazing is how small it is. It's so cute, but it weighs about 20 pounds. It's like a little brick. Everyone who sees it says, oh my God, it's so small. And then everyone who picks it up says, oh my God, it's so heavy. It's just the cutest thing around. So that's brand new. Let's see. We also have a new CD player. And this was just announced yesterday. And some people think it's the most beautiful CD player in the world. A few people think it's the ugliest CD player in the world, but that's okay because we still build regular CD players. This is for someone who has our retro looking gear, maybe an MA252 or an MA352 amplifier, and they want something to match it. So that's what this does. This matches the 252 and the 352, which is important because the 352 has become our most popular amplifier. But what's neat about this is it's got a DAC built in for 4 extra sources. So this not only plays CDs, you can hook up 2 optical sources, 2 coax sources, and your computer through USB. So it's not really a CD player. It's a DAC with a built-in disk transport. And it's very reasonably priced. Now, I talk in dollars, you don't deal with dollars, so I'm not going to talk about prices. but it's less expensive than most people would expect. It also has these balanced outputs on it, and they're really important. Balanced outputs are important if your CD player is far away from your system. And people would normally say, why would I do that? My CD player is right there. I've got my preamp, my CD player, my tuner, and my amplifier. But this is smaller than usual. It's only 12 inches wide, right? So that's what, how many centimeters is that? 24, about 30 centimeters roughly. So it's very small. So now it's small enough that you could put it on a little table next to your chair where you like to listen. And now you can load discs right next to you. But that means long cables back to the system. If you use the balanced outputs, that's okay. You can run long cables. So that's a very neat new product. Also, shall I talk about home theater?
I think that we're running out of time.
Okay, this is what happens when you have someone from New Jersey. I talk a lot.
Thank you. You know what amazed me? How does Macintosh see the future of the product lineup? I love it.
Yep, Macintosh is an interesting company. Most companies go one direction only. Macintosh says, people love our old tube equipment, so let's build tube, but let's also build solid state. Let's make retro, old-fashioned looking things, but let's also come out with things like this that are super slim and ultra modern. Macintosh is diversifying, and the reason they can do that is because they build things themselves. Most companies buy their face plates from China, and they buy their cases from someone else, and they buy their transformers from someone else. And when you do that, you have to order 1,000 at a time. So you can't have many models. Macintosh doesn't do that. Macintosh buys metal and makes their own chassis. So they can have 8 different preamps, 7 CD players, and that's okay, because if they need more chassis, if they run out, they go down the hall and say to the metal workshop, make me more chassis. Mm-hmm. And the guy who makes chassis has worked there for 51 years.
Wow.
The same job. So the future of Macintosh is to diversify a little bit. It's very exciting. This piece is the new home theater processor, and this one was my idea, so it's kind of a favorite of mine.
Congratulations on that excellent idea. Okay.
Yes. Ken, Sergio, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure. I hope we get to do this again.
Yes, sure, absolutely.
Okay.
All right. You can count it.
Thank you. I'll be there.
Thank you, Ken. A todos los participantes, muchas gracias. Nos vemos ahorita en la sesión de Marantz. Muchas gracias.